History is not a collection of facts, but of echoes. And in the dark corridors of the 18th century, one name echoes louder than any cannonade: Blackbeard. He was more than a man, he was a walking nightmare, a spectre conjured from cannon smoke and sea salt. His very name was a weapon, whispered in taverns and royal courts alike. But the true terror of Blackbeard was not in his violence, but in his artistry. He was a performer, and the blood-soaked stage of the Caribbean was his grand theater. To understand the monster, we must first exhume the man buried beneath the myth. A man once known not as Blackbeard, but as Edward Teach. His story begins not in a lawless cove, but in the bustling, grimy port of Bristol, England. Here, among the forests of masts and the cries of merchants, a future demon of the seas learned his trade. Before the black flag, he served the crown. As a privateer during Queen Anne's War, Teach was given a license to plunder, learning the brutal calculus of naval combat under the guise of patriotism. But when the war ended, the treaties were signed, and thousands of sailors like Teach were cast adrift. They were men trained for violence, now unemployed and obsolete in a world suddenly at peace. For some, this was a death sentence. For Edward Teach, it was an opportunity. He would not fade into obscurity, he would forge his own kingdom upon the waves. This was the dawn of the Golden Age of Piracy. A brief, violent, and strangely utopian moment when the dispossessed declared war on the world. Their capital was Nassau, a wretched hive of ambition and liberty on the island of New Providence. Here, captains were elected, loot was shared, and the laws of empires held no sway. In this crucible of rebellion, Teach found a mentor in the formidable pirate Captain Benjamin Hornigold. He learned that in this new world, a reputation was more valuable than gold. Teach was an eager student, quickly distinguishing himself not just with his skill, but with his terrifying presence. He understood that true power was not wielded, but projected. In 1717, Hornigold rewarded his protégé with command of his own vessel. The student was now a master, free to unleash his own dark vision of piracy upon the Atlantic. His moment of destiny arrived with the capture of La Concorde, a massive French slave ship. In its vast hull and rows of cannons, Teach saw not a prize, but a throne. He refitted the vessel, adding 40 cannons until it bristled with firepower. He then rechristened it with a name that promised retribution and apocalypse, the Queen Anne's Revenge. This was no mere pirate ship, it was a floating fortress, a symbol of his terrifying ambition. With it, he could challenge not just merchant vessels, but the warships of the Royal Navy itself. And with this new power, Edward Teach completed his transformation. He shed his old identity and embraced the persona that would make him immortal, Blackbeard. The performance began. He cultivated his black beard, braiding it into pigtails tied with black ribbons, letting it grow into a monstrous, untamed mane. Before battle, he would weave slow-burning cannon fuses into his beard and under his hat. Wreathed in a halo of acrid smoke, he appeared to his victims as a demon emerging from the depths of hell. He wore a crimson coat and a sling over his shoulders, holding multiple pistols and daggers. He was not just a captain, he was an avatar of death, a walking arsenal. His flag was a masterpiece of psychological terror. Not the simple skull and crossbones, but a skeleton spearing a bleeding heart, a promise of swift and certain doom. This was the genius of Blackbeard. He weaponized fear itself, crafting a brand of terror so potent that his battles were often won before the first shot was fired. Captains would hear the name Blackbeard and simply surrender, preferring to lose their cargo than face the devil himself. It was brutally efficient, a business model built on dread. He understood a fundamental truth of human nature: the fear of violence is often a more powerful tool for control than the act of violence itself. His reputation was his sharpest cutlass. There are surprisingly few documented accounts of him harming his captives. He didn't need to. The carefully constructed illusion of his boundless sadism did the work for him. His career became a piece of grand, bloody theater. He was the director, writer, and star of a spectacle designed to paralyze his enemies with existential horror. In a strange partnership, he took the gentleman pirate, Stede Bonnet, under his wing. The wealthy, bookish landowner was an unlikely protege for the fearsome Blackbeard. Perhaps he saw in Bonnet a reflection of a life he never had, or perhaps he simply saw a man with a good ship who could be easily manipulated. With pirates, utility often masqueraded as friendship. With Bonnet's ship, the Revenge, added to his fleet, Blackbeard commanded a small armada. He was no longer a lone predator, but the admiral of a pirate navy. In the spring of 1718, at the apex of his power, he committed his most audacious act. He blockaded the port of Charleston, South Carolina, one of the British Empire's wealthiest colonies. For nearly a week, he held an entire city hostage, seizing ships and taking prominent citizens as prisoners. He was making a statement: no part of this new world was safe from him. His ransom demand was not for gold or jewels, but for a chest of medicine. His crew was suffering from venereal disease, and in a stroke of pragmatic genius, he used terror to acquire a cure. Charleston paid the price, and Blackbeard sailed away, having utterly humiliated the colonial government. He had proven that the membrane between civilization and chaos was perilously thin. But such a direct challenge to imperial authority could not go unanswered. In the halls of power in Virginia, Governor Alexander Spotswood began to plot Blackbeard's destruction. Sensing the changing tides, Blackbeard accepted a king's pardon, scuttling the Queen Anne's Revenge and briefly retiring to Bath, North Carolina. The monster attempted to live as a man. But the performance was too deeply ingrained. The call of the sea, and of his own dark legend, was too strong. The retirement was short-lived. Governor Spotswood, acting outside his legal jurisdiction, financed a secret expedition to hunt and kill the pirate. It was no longer a matter of law, but a personal vendetta. The mission was entrusted to Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy. A determined, professional officer, he was the antithesis of Blackbeard's chaotic persona. In November 1718, Maynard found Blackbeard's ship, the Adventure, anchored in Ocracoke Inlet. The final act of the tragedy was about to begin. Maynard's sloops lacked cannons, so he devised a trap. He hid the majority of his men below deck, feigning a retreat to lure Blackbeard into a boarding action. Blackbeard, arrogant and likely drunk, fell for the ruse. As his pirates swarmed onto the seemingly empty deck of Maynard's ship, the naval soldiers erupted from their hiding places. The deck became a slaughterhouse. In the heart of the melee, Blackbeard and Maynard faced each other, the myth against the man, chaos against order. Blackbeard fought with the fury of a cornered god. He broke Maynard's sword and was about to deliver the killing blow when a sailor slashed him across the neck from behind. Still, he fought on. It took 5 pistol shots and more than 20 severe sword cuts before the giant finally fell. His end was as epic and brutal as his life. To prove the kill and as a gruesome warning to all other pirates, Maynard decapitated the corpse. Blackbeard's head was suspended from the bowsprit of his ship for the journey back to Virginia. The man, Edward Teach, was dead. But in his death, the carefully constructed performance achieved its apotheosis. The legend was now free from the man. His reign of terror lasted only 2 years, a fleeting moment in the grand sweep of history. Yet his shadow looms larger than that of kings who ruled for decades. And what of his treasure? The stories of buried chests persist, a final, tantalizing piece of the myth he created. A puzzle with no solution. But Blackbeard's true legacy was not buried in the sand. It was the image he perfected, the definitive, terrifying archetype of the pirate that haunts our collective imagination to this day. He was a master of public relations, a pioneer of psychological warfare, an artist whose medium was fear. And through his dark art, an ordinary sailor from Bristol achieved a terrifying, and eternal, life.